Hello, I'd like to welcome you all to the webinar series on implementation support. You're going to have a lot of information in the next hour, and we're looking forward to seeing you at the conference. Steve, could you give me control? Thank you. My name's Lloyd Rankin. I'm the president of Group ASI. We're a company that specializes in assisting organizations in implementing advanced work packaging and work-based planning globally. And we've been running this conference since 2009. We've seen explosive growth in advanced work packaging, and there are now a number of resources that weren't there before. So we'll be introducing you to those today. We've got 4 of these 5 companies are attending today. ConstructX, Insight, O3, and Brand. Unfortunately, Vixx is not able to attend today. So these 4 companies all support advanced work packaging in quite different ways, and they've all got experience on extremely varied projects, and they have some great stories to tell. They'll go into it in more detail at the conference, but this will just give you a sense of what they do and how they could help you. So the question we're going to be asking our panel today is, how does your company support AWP implementation and improve a project's overall performance? And we're going to be going to the panelists one at a time to give time to answer the question, and then they'll be talking about what their session at the conference is going to be in the breakouts. And you'll have an opportunity to ask them some questions and get some more information at the end of the webinar. So our first company is ConstructX, and I'll hand it over to Robin to fill us in on who they are and what they do.
All right, thank you very much, Lloyd. And welcome everybody to the webinar this morning. My name is Robin Mickelson. I'm a principal with ConstructX. I come to the webinar with over 20 years experience in construction now, I guess. I've been heavily involved with groups like COA and CII in developing the work-based planning and advanced work packaging model over the past 15 years. During that time, I've assisted in process implementations and technology implementations on well over 100 projects globally. And I'm joined today by Fernando Espana, who will, I'll get him to introduce himself now, and we will both be your presenters for the breakout session in Houston. Fernando?
Yeah, hi, this is Fernando Espana. I'm glad to be here today. I've been involved with the construction industry for well over 30 years, and in the last 20 here, you can see I have some expertise in implementing not only advanced work packaging, but a lot of technology as well, including virtual design, engineering, and construction, and started realizing early that the power of leveraging technology in these processes is going to be incredible, and it's proven itself out. So I'll just leave it at that and hand it back to Robin to lead us through.
All right, thank you very much, Fernando. Okay. So just a little bit about ConstructX. ConstructX is a global company. We have consulted and are consulting on projects across the globe. We consult on projects from small hospital construction projects all the way up to some of the largest giga projects in the world operating today. We specialize in training and coaching, processes and procedures, tracking and reporting, oversight and leadership, and AWP Technology Services. Within ConstructX, we have some of the leading software and technology implementers in the world that have all come together to form ConstructX as the industry leader in technology implementations and process consultancy for our clients. Few of our typical programs and deliverables. We deliver an AWP Business Value Assessment program that allows our clients to not only just, okay, we've got into AWP, now what, and how do we know it's working? We deliver a business value assessment program that allows you to understand what the expected outcomes are going to be and how that's going to scale through your implementation process. We provide services and deliverables around AWP implementation and planning, and scalability for those types of project implementations. We supply our clients with AWP toolkits and playbooks. We believe that procedures are pretty prolific in the industry around AWP, but when it really comes down to it, it's AWP to me that is important to the individuals to work effectively in an organization. And our playbooks and toolkits allow those individual guidances through the process of implementation in AWP. We offer training and coaching services, as mentioned, and we are leaders in technology assessment and integration. We believe that we require placing best fit solutions according to the organization's requirements. We are completely tool agnostic, meaning that we work with all the industry main software providers for AWP and metrics tracking to implement the best technology portfolios for our clients. Now, our value statement, our mission, if you will, is to help to improve this plateau that construction seems to have been achieving in productivity improvement over the last several decades. While the rest of the industry seem to be increasing in their productivity gains, construction, as we all know, seems to have lagged in a flat line. Our value statement and mission is to help facilitate that 30% step change in performance while continuing with a value coaching program with our clients to encourage that 10% continuous improvement throughout the life cycle of the implementations and processes. That value statement we don't take lightly. It's our mainstay in how we work with our clients in ensuring these types of results moving forward. Now, a little bit about what we're going to be presenting on at the AWP conference. Scaling AWP in your project portfolio is a very important question and usually comes in the form of two different questions. How do we scale AWP in our organization? And how do we scale the AWP model for our project size? Two very important questions when trying to scale AWP into your organization. And the answer to both of these questions, we feel, lie in the implementation approach. When talking about the implementation approach and the scalability of AWP for an organization, during the breakout session, we're going to take the attendees through several topic areas. These topic areas have been broken out and will be in discussion during the breakout session for the purposes of understanding that these different areas of implementation scale at different rates, and therefore we have developed the horizon type basis for implementation on how to leverage the different areas effectively through your implementation cycles and your organizational acceptance of AWP program. So please join us at the AWP conference. We will be in the Navarro room at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, and we'll be talking about scaling AWP in your project portfolio. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much, Robin. So I'm going to throw it over to Jeff now. and he is with Inside AWP.
Hey, thanks, Steve, and thanks, Robin. Hey, so I'd like to start by introducing myself. As Steve mentioned, I am Jeff Ryan. I am the CEO of Inside AWP. As the slide says here, I've got about 25 years of construction experience and about, let's say, coming up to 12 years of experience with Inside. I work in the field of construction productivity, and of course, that is workforce planning and advanced work packaging. Also, the author of Schedule for Sale on workforce planning, so that was published in 2009, and published right this month in 2017 is the next version of, or the next advancement of that methodology, which is even more Schedule for Sale, advanced work packaging, which we will be launching at the conference. Let's talk a little bit about Inside AWP. So first of all, this year we are moving from changing the name of the company from Inside WFP to Inside AWP because sort of that's the way the industry is moving, and that's really what we do now. We're involved with engineering and procurement rather than just construction. So we're a full-service AWP implementation company. That means that we look at gaps in our client organizations for the implementation of AWP, and we provide expertise and process to fill those gaps. We've got about 10 years of experience, or a little over 10 years now, coming up to 12 years, and we just started our 31st mega project. We've executed projects in Canada, the US, Europe, and Australia. We have a pretty good deep pool of subject matter experts now that we have collected along the way. We've got a staff of 15 people working for us right now. One of the key functions, of course, is that we have, now that we've done this, and we've done it often, that we have procedures that are based on reality and lessons learned. Of course, over that time, we have also developed a pile of templates that we find are a good platform to start with on a project. Let me talk a little bit about the structure of the company and what is going to lead us into the presentation, the breakout session that we're going to have at the conference. We see that there are essentially two parts of AWP. There is education and implementation, and that any good organization needs to address both of those issues so that there is an understanding of what AWP is, and of course an implementation model that addresses what needs to happen. So when we look at the roadmap that took us there, we developed this roadmap, which really breaks the whole AWP process down into three parts: advanced work packaging, information management, and workforce planning. Specifically at the breakout session, we'll be looking at the information management portion of this presentation. So let's have a quick look at the actual presentation. I know that if you build the cloud, they will come is the catchphrase of the presentation, and I know that this is quite a profound statement, but also very true. The reality of our mega construction projects is that they've been wandering in the digital desert of information for many years. And a search for a mythical information stream or a superhighway that we got used to on our iPhones on everything except construction. So, we have this gap at the moment between what we do after work and what we do during work. During work, we have staff for information. After work, we live on the information superhighway. So one of the things we'd like to talk about in the presentation is what we're doing about that. So how do we bring all of that information into an environment that gives everybody access to it? Now, so we'll be talking about the cloud, and our focus is on the emergence of the cloud as an operating platform to support AWP. We have two projects right now that have established the cloud and are using it to host workforce planning software, document control, and material management. Integration of these three components mixed with the ease of access created by the cloud has certainly created a holistic project management environment, which is a transition from a welcome transition from the construction planning environment that we used before now. Our presentation at the conference will be centered on the methods and benefits that we've been seeing from this. So just one more slide from the presentation. We'll talk about the process of getting there. It's all right to say it's nice to have a cloud and it's nice to have it full of information, but of course that process takes a lot of hard work and a lot of structure to get there. So in order for the workplace planners to have a one-stop shop where they can go and plan and progress, and a place where the project management team can see progress and interact with the project, you need to have a very rigid, structured environment. So we're going to talk through that. This is a quick look at a roadmap that we will talk through during the presentation. So the end result of that, and one of the really exciting things that comes out of having a cloud environment, is that you can pull project reports. As importantly, this is a cloud environment. We sort of stumbled on this, not by design. We got there by, I guess, by following the request of our clients. We eventually set up the cloud as a project management environment, so managed by the project management, and contributed to by the stakeholders. So the stakeholders have their inputs, and the project management have the overall management of the process. So this creates an environment where the project management team can then pull reports from the cloud that satisfy the need to understand what is governing the project. So anyway, we'll talk during the breakout presentation. We'll talk through how each one of these reports comes about. So just in finishing, I'd like to say that this year's conference is a very big deal for us. We're launching a new company inside AWP. We have a new version of the book, so even more scheduled for sale, which is specifically aimed at a guidebook for advanced work packaging. It's a step-by-step process that walks through all of the elements of our flow charts and all of the templates and all of the processes and a bit of the logic that goes with that. We are really excited about the way that the cloud platform is becoming a centerpiece of the AWP model, and we'd like to share that with the conference. So we'll be talking a lot about that in our breakout session. Beyond that, we've also produced some YouTube videos, which are tutorials to help our project teams be able to guide their people towards an understanding of AWP. They're basically just an introduction to all the different elements of AWP, a good place for the project teams to start. We're going to post those on YouTube, make them free to anybody that wants to go and have a look at them. So we'll post some of those at the conference as well. So anyway, hopefully you'll make it to the conference. It sounds like, just talk to the rest of the presenters here on this webinar. It's going to be very exciting. We have some really, really good tools and people and processes and companies that are there to help you guys implement AWP. Hope to see you there. Thank you. Oh, one more slide, pardon me. So our breakout session is in the Navarro room at 9 a.m. on the Wednesday at the conference. Hope to see you there.
Great, thank you very much, Jeff. Next up is OH3, so I'm going to go ahead and pass the controls over to Josh Curvin.
Thank you. We are OH3 Solution, and we provide AWP Program Management. My name is Josh Curvin. I'm the CEO. And a little background on myself. I was formerly the SVP of Product and Market Strategy for Atlas RFID Solutions. So I've been building software products in this space for some time and been building software products for my entire career. started a number of companies in the software space, and was a mechanical engineer by background. I'm also involved in the Fiat Tech, a leader of the PAT 7 group and a member of the PAT 8 group, and have formerly been a member of CII and the AWP community of practice. A little bit about our solution. We provide what we call AWP Program Management, which is a software as a service provided through the cloud that helps owner-operators to define AWP for their organization, help them define what right looks like for AWP and set the conditions for success, and then facilitate the execution of best practices, and then ultimately it provides oversight to drive continuous improvement. So we help owners to monitor and predict the health of their AWP implementation. So we're a software solution that's designed specifically for owners who are implementing AWP not only on projects but across their enterprise from a program approach. When we think about advanced work packaging, one of the things that we think about is the fact that these projects have very complex project delivery engines. If you think about all of the tools and the people and the process and technology that goes into executing a capital project, it's a very complex project delivery engine. And when you implement advanced work packaging, and not just work-phase planning, but actually expand that to be advanced work packaging, it's not a construction methodology. Advanced work packaging is a project execution methodology, and so it spans from concept all the way through commissioning. If you are fully taking advantage of the benefits of advanced work packaging, it's across the entire project execution life cycle from concept through commissioning. And so advanced work packaging by its definition is a methodology that's bigger than any one tool. And there's really only one person or one stakeholder who's over the entire project life cycle who's in a position to provide oversight over the entire process, and that's the owners. And so we're a solution that's focused on helping the owners have visibility and oversight over the entire project lifecycle from advanced work packaging perspective. And so within this analogy of a project delivery engine, you can think of the OH3 solution as the diagnostics or the check engine light that's verifying that in fact you are implementing and following the advanced work packaging best practices, and then providing that oversight capability and that reporting capability to help you identify areas for improvement, and then work with implementation partners like the folks that we've heard from today to improve your processes and improve your training and improve your adherence. So we're the solution that helps identify those challenges and we work with our partners, implementation partners, then to help owners take advantage of those opportunities and improve their AWP adoption and health. So we're a solution that's focused on the owners to let them see and know that the oversight is there and know that the doing is getting done. And we consume data from the transactional tools that are used by the contractors who are responsible for doing the doing. And as I mentioned, we really focus on a partnership approach. So some of the consulting folks that you've heard from today, as well as others, we look to leverage their subject matter expertise and implementations abilities, as well as partnering with industry-leading owners to provide a complete advanced work packaging solution. And so we partner with implementation consultants to help the owners define the contractual data exhibits that they need to consume information to be able to provide oversight, and then we work with them to configure the solution to provide the oversight capabilities and auditing capabilities, data-driven approach to auditing and oversight, and then the partners are able to use that information to help the owners improve their processes and to capture additional value and to expand their utilization and adoption of advanced work packaging. And then from a process perspective of what that looks like for our solution is we start with the owners and look at their corporate initiatives. So the majority of the major owners have corporate initiatives around productivity and other areas within their organization, and we work with them to then, along with our implementation and consulting partners, to define what that means in terms of the outcomes that they're seeking for their advanced work packaging program. Then those outcomes then can be translated into what do we need to achieve on a project basis, and those project goals then can be translated down into the practices that are necessary to achieve those goals. So if you have a corporate initiative around productivity and safety, those can translate into outcomes from the AWP program. There may be you may have a corporate initiative of a 30% reduction in your capital expenditure, and maybe you're seeking to get a 10% reduction in TIC from your AWP program, which translates into a certain project goal, which translates down into the best practices that we need to put in place in order to achieve that reduction in installed cost. Those best practices then translate into the data that we need to have in place in order to measure and provide oversight as to whether those are occurring. So we work with in conjunction with our partners and our owner clients to go from their corporate initiatives down to defining the very base level, the data that needs to be consumed from the contractor and other stakeholder systems in order to be able to provide oversight. And working back up from the data, that data then leads to a series of measurements, and those measurements are defined as consuming some very specific information and correlating that data across different data sets, and performing some measurements that are very specific in the information that we're able to provide around installation practices or engineering practices or procurement or construction or startup and commissioning or other areas of advanced work packaging, where we take a series of best practices and measure the adherence to those best practices. Those best practices then and those measurements then roll up to a score, which is easily translated into a red, yellow, or green based off of the value there on a 0 to 10 scale. We also provide trending information to show whether or not you're improving or getting better across a particular best practice, or that's an area that needs focus. Then those scores across a set of best practices roll up to a scorecard within a particular area, such as installation or construction management or startup and commissioning. And then those scorecards roll up to a project level, which for a project manager gives them a sense of the overall score or health and adoption of advanced work packaging across the entire project. And then those series of projects roll up to give the AWP program managers a sense of the overall health of the AWP program across the enterprise. So with that, we ask you to join us at the AWP Conference. We'll be presenting on October 10th at 3 o'clock in the Navarro room. And the title of our presentation is Empowering Owners to Drive AWP Program Success. And in that session, we'll be providing some additional information about how we work with owners and the information that we provide, and we'll also have more of a pull session where we'll be working with folks in the audience to understand some of the challenges that they've experienced in more of a workshop setting, to capture some of that information and help to understand some of the other challenges that maybe we aren't addressing today that we can add to our solution to help move the industry forward. So with that, thank you very much, and hope to see you at the conference.
Awesome, thanks very much, Josh. So up next is Rick from Brand Safeway, and I'll hand it over to Rick now.
Okay, thanks, Stephen. Thanks everyone for joining. Pretty informative so far. I'll do my best to kind of point out what we're chasing in the AWP WFP life cycle and how we can support you. As mentioned, I'm Rick Dunlap, VP of Technical Services for Brand Safeway. Been in the industrial contracting business 30 years plus. My background has primarily been project management related and project control related. I would say our relationship with COA and CII and others throughout my career kind of pointed us to WFP and now AWP as something that's very important for our industry, very important for our clients, and very important for us as an organization to keep driving value. We're looking for productivity and value. We did that traditionally by building PM teams and control teams, and now we're building our AWP capabilities, how we bolt up with your own organizations, and how we work with some of the vendors like you've seen today. So that's my team's focus. A little bit about who we are and why we think AWP and WFP is important is Brand Safeway is about a $5 billion organization, so that's a lot of Softcraft. That's a lot of stuff that we do in the field with about 32,000 employees. So anytime we can do things better, smarter, we're driving value for the industry, we're driving value for our clients, and obviously for ourselves. So we're a global organization. We're in several hundred locations in dozens of countries, including Europe, Asia Pacific, South America, obviously the oil sands, and North America. And the map kind of paints it out for us. So our primary business is access, insulation, coatings, abatement, a lot of the soft crafts. And one of the points that I want to make is, as an industry, AWP is still fairly new in implementation. A lot of what I heard so far in the webinars is how we get the AWP ball rolling and the WFP ball rolling. My team's really focused on that, and we're trying to find places to bolt up with EPCs, GCs, and owners who want to go down that path and take that journey. As a Softcraft provider, we feel like we're ahead of the game. We work with we've done numerous projects now at some level or another related to AWP or WFP, whether it's in the front-end planning or whether it's in the actual project execution. And what I'm going to talk about is some of our tools and processes that we use. So, man, this mouse is getting me. We have a real focus on access, and I think it's twofold. In mega projects, giga projects, and just general day-to-day projects, I think access has been a sore thumb for a lot of people. Typically, cost overruns are a challenge as it relates to access, and I would say that there's a very distinct reason. I've been lobbying Lloyd and his team at ASI and others in the industry, including software manufacturers, to say AWP implementations and WFP implementations typically focus on that learning curve of let's get the heavy crafts in first. When you stand back and look at the mix of hours, a lot of the hours that aren't addressed by AWP efforts, I would say as much as half, fall into the bailiwick that we're chasing. So that said, the piece that is important to us, about half of our business is access related, and we want to remain a leader, and we want to remain the best value for our clients. So we're chasing that and trying to figure out how to bolt up. So the way we go at it is to create visual work packages and then support our clients or EPCs' efforts in their work packaging process. A lot of our work is not necessarily truly AWP, but as there's not long lead design for scaffold or coatings application, but there are some places that access really does matter. Access impacts every craft that's executing work in the field, but we're treated as a constraint. So one of my pet peeves and one of the initiatives that I'm really pushing is to get access treated as a true discipline in the field because it impacts everyone's work. So we use a simple product that we built in-house to create a visualization. We can now integrate that with a variety of platforms to create work packages with our geometry basically in space, whether we're using regardless of the software system we're using. I don't want to name any, but all the industry leading ones. And then even when we don't have 3D design models, so we want to use an as-built model for laser scanning or other, we're creating these work packages for our teams. And the real purpose is so that we can support the project not just traditionally in the construction management phase, but also be a resource for our clients, provide visualizations in the strategy and constructability phase. Obviously in that work phase planning phase where all the disciplines talk about what's the path of construction, how are we going to get this work done, what's the most efficient way to do that, we can be a tool and a resource to do that for as much as 20 or 30% of the man hours that you typically spend on a project. And then lastly, we want to use that work package for our own teams to be accountable to go execute efficiently and drive value on our own account. So some of the things to consider, man, this thing is jumping. Some of the things to consider would be there's really two ways that we get engaged with our clients. And what we want to demonstrate at the conference is some examples of how we've done that. And I think it's the upfront helping you get your arms around the scope, being able to bolt up to your work phase planning or AWP model and be part of your work packaging system. there's also the execution piece. When this job goes from plan to actual field execution, we'll follow a very homogeneous process for that as well, where our teams and your teams are already aligned with what the project control process and the AWP process is for the project. When it converts from plan to execution, it's no change for us. It's just another step in the process. So we'll have numerous examples. We'll do a couple of hands-on and share some value stories. A couple of value stories that I threw on this slide just to kind of make the point was COA and the CII group and many others have chased the tool time story up and down the path, and quite honestly and quite simply said, when I look at the request of work typically given to us, we may see as many as 10 for work access. And what we're doing using 3D space, using the AWP WFP model where clients are actually generating IWPs, it becomes much easier for us to identify what are those repetitive actions in the field so that I can consolidate 10 travels, 10 permits, 10 material logistics steps into 3, and that pure and simple translates to tool time improvement. As a case study, I worked with one of the other speakers on the webinar today to establish work phase planning and AWP process for a mid-cap project, and we were able to demonstrate substantial improvement in what I call productivity just by following a process and having standard repeatable work activities happen. We didn't have to have the client pay for that improved productivity, but the biggest metric that I could point to is the number of times we had to modify or rebuild work access for people was cut substantially from a run rate of 40% within the first month of a project down to the final of 13%. So if you scale that over several jobs or over several 100,000 man hours, you can see the impact just on our costs. Now, that said, think about the impacts to the other crafts that are waiting for scaffolds or access. And I would challenge the group to always think about how we can be included in AWP and WFP in your efforts, because we're half your man hours. So look forward to hopefully seeing some of you at the show. Tuesday, October 10th, we'll be in the Navarro room as well, 1:30 to 2:30 p.m. and I appreciate your time very much.
Thanks very much, Rick. So now our facilitator will come back online and lead us through the rest of the presentation here.
Thanks, Steve. Have you given me control?
Yes.
Okay, as the rest of you can probably tell, there's a slight delay between when we press the button and when something moves, so I'm hesitant to hit it twice and overshoot. The last panelist that couldn't make it was Vixx, and they're an RFID company. Basically, they specialize in making it easier to find your materials, track your people. They have a lot of case studies, examples of where they've been able to assist on AWP implementations, and I think that they'd be well worth visiting at the conference. I'm just trying to, yeah, and their breakout session is going to be on Tuesday from 1:30 to 2:30. I'd just like to say before we move on to the Q&A portion that I personally know all of the companies that are on the panel today, and they all have amazing track records of supporting AWP projects. So one of the things that we find at the conference is we've got 5 of the top EPC companies, we've got a lot of the top technology companies in the world, we've got the implementation support companies, and there's going to be some fantastic presentations from owners. But I think one of the things that you'll really get out of the event is the opportunity to network and talk to people that have this hands-on experience. So let's now switch to the Q&A portion. And what I'd like you to do is just send your questions to Steve through the chat function, and then he will read off the questions and the panelists will respond to them. So Steve, do you have some questions to start us off with?
Sure, yeah. So just as a general question here, looks like it's pointed toward all panelists on the webinar today, and we'll go through the panelists one by one. What size of projects or size of companies have you seen in your experience implementing AWP? So maybe that would be sort of what kind of range of project and company sizes. Maybe we'll pass it over to ConstructX to start us off. Robin and Fernando.
Sure. Thank you very much, Steve. We've seen projects from all shapes and sizes, if you will, starting to implement AWP. AWP is definitely no longer the giga project or mega project tool that it was once thought it was. We, as a company, have been implementing on several $1 million projects, and of course up to the giga projects. But the AWP methodologies have been catching on across multiple project sizes. I think more profound than just the project sizes, and we will be during our panel discussion discussing the benefits of scaling AWP across multiple size projects. The biggest thing I think that we've seen is the movement of AWP into other industries. It started with kind of an oil and gas background, but it's also moved into pharmaceuticals, petrochemical. A lot of commercial construction is starting to move in that direction also. So I think sizes are definitely becoming more vast in the implementations, but also the different construction industries that are embracing the methodologies.
Okay, great. Thanks very much. Maybe Rick, did you want to speak to that question?
Sure. I guess I have a little bit different perspective because it seems like in the Softcraft side we're pushing the issue more than being pulled to the issue, but we are supporting a variety of clients in Europe. We're supporting a variety of clients in the States, and those jobs range from, I would say, 7-figure to the billion-dollar projects to the several $100 million projects. And we see varying results based on alignment of commercial strategy and a few other things, but I think everyone sees the long picture, and I see client teams and EPC teams being formed to continue to improve the maturity model for AWP and WFP. So I would expect it to be standard business in 5 years on just about every size project.
Interesting. Okay. Josh, comments on that?
Sure. So I think similar to some of the comments that Robin made, we've seen it expanding not only across the industries but across the size of projects. So as small as the kind of $2 to $10 million projects up to the tens of billions of dollar giga projects, as well as the several $100 million brownfield projects, as well as shutdown turnaround projects. So we've seen a deliberate kind of expansion, and I think part of what's driving that is that the owners are taking more of a program or enterprise approach to the implementation of AWP, where AWP has been successful on driving some value on large projects that have been maybe flagship projects. There's more of a move towards making a program approach and allowing to scale to some of the smaller projects where, without having some of the standardized policies and procedures and processes in place, it's maybe difficult to justify the cost of going to those projects. But I think owners realize that the lion's share of their work is not in the giga projects, particularly now, and so there's a real push to institutionalize some of that and take more of an enterprise approach, which I think is allowing it to scale. I think that's great for our industry.
Great. Jeff, did you feel like putting any comments on that?
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, basically, you know, I would just support what everybody else had said. That yes, you can scale projects. The basics are the same. Before you go to work, you need the stuff. That doesn't change from a project in your garage to a giga project. The process of getting organised before you go there is really what we're talking about, and yeah, that works in any environment. Now, obviously, there's tools we use on giga projects that we don't use on 2-day shutdowns, but certainly the methodology transitions all sizes.
Great. Okay, and we've had another question come in. Just give me one moment here to have a look. Okay, so the question here is, how is implementing advanced work packaging at the owner level versus, I guess, implementing from the EPC perspective? So maybe some of the differences between working with the owner versus working with the EPC. Maybe Jeff, we'll start off with you this time.
Okay, so we've had experience in both fields. Basically, it comes down to who's got the power. You know, that applying AWP is not easy. It takes a lot of influence and it takes a lot of project accountability. And the EPCs can do a good job, but if they don't have the support of the owner, then their impact and effectiveness is going to be limited. Really, the only one that has full control over the whole project is the owner. Now, of course, we as an industry, we sort of learned this the hard way. You know, we started off working with contractors, and I know Rick, you'll resonate with this. You know that if the rest of the organisation is not on board with you building scaffolds on time, and they tell you at the last minute, well, you can plan all you like, but if they're not organised, you can't get organised. So of course, so you follow that up the path, and really the only person that can fully implement AWP is the owner.
Fair enough. Josh, from O3.
Yeah, I think it echoes some of those comments. I think it's critical that the only stakeholder that's over the entire process, the overall total project lifecycle, is the owner. And so if you want to take a full advantage of advanced work packaging, and you need to really get it started in the concept phase and run it through commissioning, and the owner's the only one that overlaps over that entire process. And then you have the added complication of, on larger jobs, you typically have multiple EPCs and multiple contractors involved in the process. And so again, the owner is really the only one in the position to be over that, and all of the stakeholders over the entirety of the process. And I think when we look at some of the information, like the McKinsey report that came out recently that looked at the top 10 kind of complaints from the contractors and top 10 complaints from the owners, I think the number one complaint from the contractor was a lack of clear definition from the owners. And I think that applies to when we talk about advanced work packaging as well. I think one of the things that we need to do as an industry is the owners have to get real clear around their definition and explicit in terms of what advanced work packaging means for their projects. And ideally, we're doing that as an industry so that the EPCs and contractors don't have to learn what AWP means to Shell and what AWP means to Exxon and what AWP means to Chevron and individually learn those, but largely we have a kind of clear definition driven by the owner saying this is what we expect, and so that the contractors and EPCs can put their systems and processes to support that. And so I think you know, the owners are really the only one in a position to drive that and to sort of drive towards that standardization. And I think for us to really scale, we need to have some clarity and definition and standardization around what AWP means, and then what we need to have in place in terms of the ability to kind of measure and the data deliverables necessary to know that those AWP practices are happening. I think once we have that in place, then AWP really scales within our industry.
Perfect, thank you. Rick, did you want to add some comments?
Sure, I'll make it brief. The guys previously covered all the issues in my opinion. I think the way I would say it is there's got to be some standard data definitions and standard outputs requirements set by the owner because of all the competing agendas, and that could be multiple EPCs or multiple contractors or multiple organizations within a facility, even the maintenance group versus capital group, etc. So aligning that has to come from the top down, and I would say one other big one, and I touched on it briefly in my section, is a lot of times the commercial strategies are very fragmented on these jobs, and people want to get started with AWP. Procurement already has a commercial strategy; they're throwing it over the fence. Project has a different strategy, and that keeps throwing stuff in their spokes, so to speak. So I think it has to come from the owner. It has to come top down, at least to a point. And then you have to have wanting participants in this process. If you're getting lip service by your key providers, it'll never work. They'll keep sabotaging it. So got to have the want to and the commitment to do it. That's my comment.
Thank you, Rick. Appreciate it. Finally, Robin and Fernando, did you want to add some thoughts on there?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think, I definitely agree with the comments made by my colleagues. The implementation of AWP effectively really starts with an owner's involvement, whether it's as a champion or as the true driver. I think to answer the original question of what's the differences in the two, I think in our experiences what we've seen in implementing both in both areas is the EPCs tend to be more of a single project-based type implementation where we're focused to a result for a single project and customizing based on that specific project needs. When we're dealing with the owners, the owner approach tends to be a more vast programmatic approach where it's a true enterprise deployment where it could be deploying the AWP methodologies across 200-300 projects a year. So it's a real shift in culture in the owners versus the more work-phase planning in the trenches, getting it done type implementations that we tend to see in the EPC natures.
Yeah, hi, this is Fernando. Also, I wanted to add to that what Robin just said is that owners view this is very different, and you can see that productivity chart that we showed earlier. It's how they view AWP as an investment in their organizations, and it's a long-term investment, and they start recognizing the amount of opportunity there is within their organization, but it has to be, of course, fit for purpose. Others, EPCs and contractors that I've worked with, even small ones, take a different approach. They see it as an investment as gaining a competitive advantage, and look at their own long-term perspectives. Of course, how they integrate with the owners and other EPCs is very, very different project to project, but it is an advantage to them. So it's how the owner would start qualifying the resources and the companies and the organizations, how they would educate and train those folks, right, become a higher priority in early stages, and then the implementation, of course, later on. And contractors, and EPCs on the other hand, is how do I take this to an owner, convince them that this is good for them, and then how do I work with the engineers, procurement folks, and contractors a little differently. But it does end up being an embedded advantage perspective.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I think now it's time for Lloyd to come back online and add closing comments.
Sure. Have you wrested control to me?
Here we go.
Thank you. So I want to thank all the panelists for their comments. A couple of things. One, in the handouts section, which you should be able to see on your control panel, we actually have a lookbook that provides you with detail on the conference, and you're free to download that, take a look. It's also available on our conference website, awpconference.com. We're going to be announcing that in addition to our conference in Houston in 2018, we're going to be launching a conference in London as well in 2018 in November. So this has been expanding over the years. The AWP was made a best practice in 2015, and we've seen a real explosion. And you're going to find at the conference there'll be a number of owners, a lot of contractors that have experience and want to talk to you and want to share that experience. So if your organization is looking at picking up on advanced work packaging, I can't think of a better place to be. Other than that, I just want to thank you all for taking the time to join us today, and thank again our panelists for participating. And if you have any comments, questions, please don't hesitate to send us an email. If you want to follow up with any of the speakers, you can go to the conference website, send us a question or a comment, and we will connect you with the speaker of your choice. That's pretty much all I have to say, and thanks again for everybody taking the time to join us.
Thank you.
Thanks.